I've always known what I wanted to do with my life. Perform on stage. Play music that makes people feel something. It's been my dream since I was a kid. Every night, I'd lie in bed, imagining the crowd's applause, the lights blinding me as I strummed my guitar. I thought Emma, my fiancée, would be the one to cheer me on. The one who'd believe in me when no one else did, but that's not what happened. She'd laugh. Always with that condescending smile of hers, like my dreams were some joke. "Come on, it's not like you're going to make it big," she'd say. "People like you don't get to play at big venues." Her friends would join in too, always chuckling behind their wine glasses. They'd joke about me as if I wasn't even there, as if my passion for music didn't matter. It hurt, more than I cared to admit. I'd smile, shrug it off, but inside, my heart was breaking. "Maybe you should just get a real job," Emma would suggest, her voice sweet and gentle, like she was helping me find a way out of my delusions. But I couldn't just give up on this. Not now, not after everything I'd been through to get this far. She didn't understand. Maybe she never would. "I'm not giving up him," I said one evening, my fingers nervously tapping on the edge of my coffee cup. She was sitting across from me, her arms crossed, looking at me like I was a fool. She sighed, an exaggerated motion that stung more than it should have. "You're serious about this?" "I'm just worried, okay? I want you to be happy, but not if it means you'll end up wasting your time. It's wasting my time." The words echoed in my head, and I could feel the anger bubbling up. But I forced myself to stay calm, to play the part of the patient, understanding fiancé. "I'll be fine," I said, though I didn't believe it. "You'll see. One day, you'll see what I can do." She didn't say anything more, just looked at me with those eyes that once held so much love and faith, but now felt distant. I didn't know what was worse, her lack of belief or her pity, that night. I locked myself in my room, guitar in hand, strumming harder than I ever had before. Every note was my declaration, my promise to myself that no matter what, I wasn't going to stop. If she wouldn't believe in me, then I'd show her. And I'd show the world too. I kept playing, even though I knew Emma was right next door. She didn't understand, and she probably never would. But that was her choice. And mine was to keep pushing forward, to keep playing. Even when it felt like no one else cared. I wasn't going to let her mock my dreams. Not anymore. The tension between Emma and me was starting to feel like a constant hum in the background. Every time we talked, every time we spent time together, there was this underlying strain. It was as if the distance between us was growing with each passing day. I could feel it in every word she spoke. "Why don't you just give it up already?" she said one morning, her voice dripping with frustration as she sipped her coffee. "You're not getting any younger, you know. You need to grow up. Stop chasing some fantasy." She looked at me like she had said it 1,000,000 times before, and I hated how right she sounded. I stood there, frozen for a moment, fighting the urge to yell. "I can't just let it go." I said, finally breaking the silence. "This is what I want. This is what I've always wanted." She sighed heavily, like my words were just more noise. "You want to be a musician? Fine, but what about a real job? You can't keep living like this, hoping some miracle will happen." I gritted my teeth. Every time she spoke like that, I felt smaller, like my dreams didn't matter. Like I wasn't enough. "Double quotes, Emma. I got a gig tonight," I said, trying to sound hopeful. Like it was going to make everything better. "It's at the Groove. You know, that venue I've been working on for months? I finally got a spot." Her eyes barely flickered. "Oh, that's nice. Are you really doing this tonight?" "I thought we were supposed to." "I can't miss this, Em." "It's a big deal," I interrupted, my frustration creeping in. This could be the break I've been waiting for. She shook her head. "You're not listening to me. You're going to waste your time on this. You're not going to be anything more than just another guy playing in some rundown bar." Her words hit me like a slap. I wanted to scream, to tell her that she was wrong. But instead, I just stood there. Fists clenched, swallowing back the anger. "Fine, I get it," I said, turning to leave the kitchen. "I'll do it for me." "Not for you." I walked out without another word, and I didn't look back. That night, I stood backstage at the Groove, feeling the thrum of the crowd through the walls. My hands were clammy, and my heart raced. This was it. I was about to perform, to show everyone, including Emma, that I wasn't just some dreamer. But all I could think about was her face. That disappointment in her eyes. "Are you ready?" someone asked, snapping me out of my thoughts. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if I was ready for anything. "Yeah, let's do this." I stepped out onto the stage, and the lights hit me hard. I could barely see the crowd, but I could feel them. I could feel their energy, their expectations. My fingers shook as I picked up the guitar, but I pushed through it. I played through the set, giving it everything I had. I needed this. I needed to prove to myself, to Emma, that I was capable. That this wasn't some pipe dream. When the last note of the final song echoed in the venue, I stood there, breathless, waiting for the applause. And when it came, I let it sink in. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had done something right. I made my way off stage, wiping sweat from my brow. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I didn't have to look at it to know it was Emma. "Did you get the pictures of my gig?" I asked, sending her a quick text as I packed up my things. I wanted her to see, to know that I was serious. She didn't respond right away. When she did, the words burned. "Congrats," she wrote. "But I still think you're wasting your time." I stared at the screen for a moment, my heart sinking. It was like nothing I did was ever enough for her. I had just performed at a packed venue, and yet, here she was again. Dismissing it all, I wanted to text back, to tell her everything I felt, to let her know how much her words hurt. But instead, I put the phone in my pocket and exhaled. Focusing on the music that had kept me grounded for so long, the crowd had cheered for me tonight, and that was all I needed. If Emma wouldn't be there to support me, then I'd keep going without her. I wasn't going to stop, asterisk. The crowd's energy was electric. The lights blinded me as I stepped out onto the stage, but I didn't care. I could feel the bass vibrating through my chest, the heat of the spotlight on my face. I strummed the first chord of the song, and the crowd roared. I couldn't help but smile. For the first time, I wasn't just dreaming, I was living it. I could hear their applause, their cheers, as I played. The connection between me and the audience was instant. They felt the music. I felt the music. And for the first time, I felt like I belonged. I finished the set, out of breath, but on top of the world. I stepped off the stage, my heart racing with excitement. "Dude, you killed it." Jason, the lead guitarist, slapped me on the back as I walked off. "Thanks, man," I said, still trying to catch my breath. That felt amazing. Adrenaline was still rushing through me, and I couldn't stop smiling. I grabbed my phone, desperate to share the moment with Emma. I had to let her know this was real. This was my dream, and it was happening. But as soon as I opened the message thread, my excitement turned to dread. There was no message from her. No congratulations, or even a good luck. Just ... nothing. I hesitated, feeling that old familiar knot in my stomach. I typed a quick message, "You should have been here." It was incredible. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Emma's name lit up the screen, and I quickly unlocked it, my heart pounding in anticipation. But when I read her message, I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. "I can't do this anymore," she wrote. "You're not going to make it. You're just wasting your time, and I'm tired of waiting. I need someone who has a real future." I stared at the screen, my hand shaking. I couldn't even find the words to reply. It felt like a punch to the gut. My world, which had just seemed so perfect, shattered in an instant. The night that should have been the happiest of my life now felt like a cruel joke. I paced around backstage, trying to steady my breathing, trying to make sense of it. The applause from the crowd still echoed in my mind, but all I could feel was this deep emptiness. I'd just played the best set of my life, and the one person I wanted to share it with was gone. I dialed her number, but it went straight to voicemail. She wasn't answering. "I thought you'd be proud of me," I muttered under my breath. "I thought you'd be here, Em." I hung up and leaned against the wall, trying to fight back the tears. I couldn't let her see me break. Not now. Not after all the years I'd spent dreaming about this moment. I swallowed the lump in my throat and wiped my eyes. She'd left me. She didn't believe in me, but you know what? I wasn't going to let her decision define me. I'll show her, I whispered to myself. I'll make her regret leaving me. One day, she'll see. I'll prove her wrong. The anger burned in my chest. It felt like a fire had been lit inside me, and for the first time, I felt a purpose that was bigger than just making it in music. This was about proving myself, about showing everyone, including her, that I was capable of more than they ever gave me credit for. I looked out at the stage. The empty crowd now just a memory. But that memory was enough. I wasn't going to let Emma's words be the last thing I heard. I wasn't going to let her be the one to decide my future. I grabbed my guitar and slung it over my shoulder, a fire burning in my gut. I walked toward the exit, determined to keep pushing forward. No more doubts. No more waiting. I was going to make it. And one day, Emma would regret walking away from me. Asterisk, I didn't think about Emma much anymore. At least, that's what I told myself. Every night, I was out on stage, playing two crowds of people who actually wanted to hear me. Every performance felt like another step forward, another notch closer to making my dream a reality. The pain of losing her still lingered in the back of my mind, like a dull ache that wouldn't go away. But I couldn't let that hold me back. I was done being the guy who only dreamed. Now, I was the guy who was actually doing it. I met people along the way, real musicians. People who were just as hungry as I was. They saw something in me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was part of something bigger than just myself. Dude, you're going to make it big, Jason said one night after a gig. He slapped me on the back, his grin wide as he passed me a cold beer. You're killing it out there. Thanks, man, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I didn't want to get too attached to the idea of making it. Not yet. But hearing him say it made me feel like it might be possible. I was doing something right. For the first time, I felt like maybe I wasn't wasting my time. But the alchemist still lingered. I had to admit, part of me was chasing this success just to prove her wrong, to make her regret leaving me. But that's the thing about revenge. It's never really about them. It's about you, about showing yourself what you're made of. Or maybe that's just what I told myself. I was playing my set one night at a local bar when I got the text. It was from Sarah, a mutual friend of mine and Emma's. Someone I hadn't talked to in a while. Just saw Emma on the flyer for the sold-out show at the stage. Sarah wrote, "She's working there now, selling tickets. Thought you might want to know." I stared at the screen, the words burning into my mind. Emma, working in the industry. Selling tickets to the very shows I once dreamed of performing at. The shows I was now playing, I could feel my blood boil as I stood there in the corner of the bar. The buzz of conversation and music fading away. Selling tickets, she was in my world now. In my territory. A sick laugh bubbled up in my chest, but I swallowed it down. This wasn't funny. This was something else. This was karma. This was my time to rise, and she was just another person in the crowd, watching from the sidelines. She didn't even get to be part of it anymore. She didn't get to take part in my victory. "Everything okay, man?" Jason asked, noticing the look on my face. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just thinking about that girl," he said, grinning. "Let it go, dude. You're way better off without her." He was right. I was better off without her. I had to remind myself of that. "Yeah, you're right," I said. But deep down, I could feel a rage building. I wasn't just going to let her slide into this new world like nothing ever happened. She had walked away from me, and now she was selling tickets to the shows I was starting to play. I couldn't let that go. The next few weeks flew by in a blur of shows, rehearsals, and late-night jams. My career was slowly building, each performance another step towards something bigger. The anger and resentment I felt towards Emma fueled me in ways I couldn't explain. But I was beginning to realize something. I wasn't doing this just to prove her wrong anymore. I was doing it for myself. I was doing it because I wanted this. Because I deserved this. I saw Emma's face every time I hit a new milestone. She was still there, in my mind, her doubts haunting me. But now it was different. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about me, and when I made it. When I finally reached the top, I would look back at her, not with anger, but with the satisfaction of knowing I didn't need her approval. I would be better than her. I wasn't just going to be another guy in the crowd anymore. I was going to be the guy they talked about. I couldn't remember the last time I felt so alive. The crowd at the concert hall was massive, the lights blinding, the energy electric. I had come so far too far to even consider turning back now. I'd worked for this, sacrificed so much just to be here. The band was on fire that night. I could feel the music coursing through me, each note pushing me higher, farther. This was the kind of show I'd dreamed of when I was still playing small bars. This was the real deal. I stepped off stage, drenched in sweat, but grinning like an idiot. The adrenaline was still pumping, and I couldn't help but laugh as I pulled my guitar off my back. "You killed it tonight," Jason shouted, throwing his arm around me. "This is it, man. You're going to make it big." I didn't know how to respond, other than to nod and smile. I didn't have the words to express it. All I knew was that this was exactly where I was supposed to be. This was my moment, but then I saw her. Emma? She was standing by the side of the stage, holding a stack of tickets. Her presence hit me like a gut punch, and for a moment, I didn't know how to react. I hadn't seen her in months, but there she was, watching me, watching us. It took everything in me to not break eye contact. I couldn't stop staring at her. At the woman who had walked out on me when I needed her the most. I had worked, fought, bled for this moment. She was just standing there like it didn't matter. Her eyes met mine. And for a split second, I thought I saw something. Guilt, maybe. Or regret. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. I made my way backstage, my thoughts a whirlwind. I had to speak to her. I had to know why she was here, what she was doing, how she could just show up like nothing had changed. She was standing by the door when I walked in, eyes glued to the ticket stubs in her hand. Not acknowledging me at first. "Emma," I said, my voice low. She froze, and slowly, she looked up at me. For a moment we just stood there, locked in this strange, heavy silence. "Wow," she said, finally breaking the silence. "I didn't think I'd ever see this. You on stage, with all those people. Looks like you really made it." I didn't know if I wanted to punch her or walk away. "Is that what you think? You think, just because I made it here, everything's fine now?" I couldn't hold it back anymore. "You left me, Emma. You gave up on me when I needed you the most. And now, look at you. You're standing there, selling tickets to my shows. What is this? Your version of some karmic justice?" She looked down, fidgeting with the ticket stubs in her hands. "I'm sorry, okay? I didn't think you'd make it. I never meant to hurt you, but I thought it was all just a dream. I didn't believe in it. I didn't believe in you." The words hit me harder than I expected. "So what? You think I need your apology now? After all this time?" She looked up at me, her eyes sad, but her voice was steady. "I didn't expect you to forgive me. I never thought it would go this far. I didn't know you'd make it, but I'm glad you did." I took a step back, the emptiness settling in my chest. This wasn't the vindication I had imagined. I wanted to feel victorious. I wanted to feel like I'd beaten her at her own game. But standing there with her, I didn't feel anything but hollow. "You're not a part of this anymore," I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "You had your chance. You don't get to claim any of this." Her lips trembled as if she wanted to say something more, but she stayed silent. "You know? I thought when I finally made it, it'd feel different. I thought it'd feel better than this," I admitted. Almost to myself. She didn't respond, just stood there, her gaze shifting toward the ground. I exhaled, a tired, frustrated sound. "I don't know what I wanted from you. Maybe I just needed to know you cared, but I'm past that now." I walked past her, but before I stepped through the door, I glanced back. "I'm done with the past, Em. You should be too." As I walked out into the night air, the cool breeze hit my face, but it didn't clear the weight pressing down on my chest. I had everything I'd ever wanted, so why did it feel like I was losing something too? Asterisk, I never thought I'd be the kind of person to enjoy someone else's failure. But when I heard that Emma's career wasn't going the way she'd planned, A small, bitter part of me couldn't help but feel satisfied. I had worked so hard for everything I'd gotten, every show, every opportunity, and she was struggling. I heard it through the grapevine at first. Emma's name popping up on a few lesser-known flyers, her face on social media posts from small events. She was hustling, but it was clear she wasn't getting the respect she thought she deserved. And now, when I passed by, I'd sometimes catch her at those small venues, trying to sell tickets the same way she'd sold them for my shows months ago. It was almost poetic. I could see it, feel it the way she was slipping. It's the way she'd underestimated me, and how she was now forced to watch me thrive. It wasn't revenge, not exactly, but it felt like something close to it. One night, I ran into her outside a club, just as I was arriving for a performance. She was handing out flyers for a show. I could tell she didn't recognize me at first, but then her eyes met mine. "Hey," she said, offering me a forced smile, trying to play it cool. "I didn't expect to see you here." I tried not to laugh. "Yeah, looks like we're both here. Just different roles." She didn't say anything for a moment. Her face was unreadable, but I could tell she was hurt. "You're still doing this?" she said quietly. "I figured you would have quit by now." "Why would I quit?" "This is what I've always wanted," I replied, my voice colder than I meant it to be. "I'm not like you. I don't give up when things get tough." She flinched, her eyes narrowing. "That's low, is it?" "Because it's true." I crossed my arms, watching her fidget with the flyers in her hands. "You know, I thought you'd be more successful by now. After all, you were so sure you had it figured out." Her face flushed with embarrassment, but she quickly hid it behind a laugh. "Yeah, well, not all of us get lucky." I stared at her, that familiar anger bubbling inside me. I had spent so long resenting her, feeling like I needed her to see me succeed. But now I just felt empty. I wanted to say something to make her feel as small as she had made me feel. But the words stuck in my throat. "Looks like we're both still chasing something," she said, her voice softer now. I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to tell her that I didn't care anymore, that I had moved on. But the truth was, I hadn't. Every time I saw her, a small part of me wanted to watch her fail more. It wasn't just about me being better anymore. It was about proving to her that she was wrong. Proving that I was worth something, even if she couldn't see it. But was that really what I wanted? Was this feeling, this strange mix of satisfaction and bitterness, what I had worked so hard for? "You look good," she said, glancing up at me. "Big shows, huh? Getting everything you wanted." I didn't know how to respond to that either. She was right. I had everything I wanted. But standing there, looking at her knowing she'd once been everything to my, couldn't shake the emptiness that gnawed at me. "Yeah," I said, my voice quieter now. "But it's not everything." Her expression softened, just for a second. I almost thought I saw the old Emma in her, the one who had once believed in me, even if it was just for a moment. But then she blinked, and that look was gone. "I guess we both have our own roads to walk," she said. Giving me one last look before she turned and walked away, I watched her disappear into the crowd. Her figure swallowed up by the night, and I couldn't help but feel like I was standing in the same spot I'd been in all along, unsure of where I was going. Unsure of who I was becoming. Was I really better than her? Was this success really what I had hoped for? Or had I just become someone like her, cold, bitter, and lost? As I stepped into the club, ready to perform for another crowd, I realized that I wasn't sure anymore. Maybe I'd gotten everything I wanted, but at what cost? I hadn't heard from Emma in weeks, and I was starting to think I never would again. She had always been someone who could handle herself at least. That's what I'd convinced myself of. She wasn't the type to fall apart. But then I got the call. I was in the middle of rehearsals, pacing back and forth when my phone buzzed. I saw her name on the screen, and for a split second, I almost didn't answer. But something pulled me in. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe something else. "Hello?" I answered, trying to keep my voice even. "Hey, it's me," Emma said, her voice softer than I expected. I need your help." I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. "Help? What's going on?" I lost my job, she said, the words coming out in a rush, almost as if she was afraid to say them. The company downsized. They're not going to keep me on. I don't know what to do. I felt a sharp pang of satisfaction, but I pushed it down. I had to remind myself that I was past her, that I didn't care anymore. That's tough, I said, trying to sound sympathetic but failing. I'm sorry to hear that. I could hear her breathing, steady but shaky. I don't know who else to turn to. Can you help me? Maybe put in a word for me somewhere. You're doing so well now, and I thought maybe, I don't know. I cut her off, my voice a little colder than I meant. You were the one who thought I was wasting my time. You didn't believe in me back then, and you didn't even try to stand by me. Why would I help you now? There was a long pause. I could practically hear the regret in her silence. I was wrong, she finally whispered. I know that now. I was stupid. I didn't see it, but I know how much you've worked for this. Please, I'm asking for a chance. I shook my head, even though I knew she couldn't see me. It's a little too late for that, don't you think? I didn't give her the chance to respond. I ended the call and tossed my phone onto the couch. A sick feeling curled in my stomach as I stared at the screen. Part of me had wanted to help, wanted to fix things with her. But another part of me couldn't forget how easily she had written me off, how she'd laughed at my dreams. But this watching her fall from the top, this was supposed to be the payoff, right? I'd been angry for so long, working myself to the bone, fighting to get to a place where I could stand tall. But now that I was here, now that she was the one begging for help, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Karma had come for her. But where did that leave me? I had everything I'd ever wanted. Stage lights, sold-out shows, new fans. Yet when I looked at the life I'd built, it didn't feel as satisfying as I'd imagined. There was a hole in my chest, an emptiness that hadn't been filled by success or revenge. I stepped outside into the cool night air, breathing in deeply as the world continued around me. I had no regrets, right? I had no reason to feel guilty. But why did it still hurt? As the weeks went by, I watched her from a distance. The job offers were few and far between. She was taking whatever she could get, playing smaller roles, working with people who didn't appreciate her. But it didn't make me feel better. It didn't bring me peace. It just made me feel tired. One night, as I prepared for another show, I caught a glimpse of her on social media. Her face was tired, her eyes heavy, but she was smiling in a way that almost seemed forced. She was performing at a tiny venue, now barely even a crowd. I sat there for a moment, staring at the screen. The old anger flared up in me, but it quickly faded. I wasn't sure what I was looking for anymore. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't success. It wasn't even Emma. I had made it, hadn't I? I had gotten everything I'd set out to achieve. And still, something didn't feel right. Hey, you good? Jason asked, snapping me out of my thoughts. I looked up at him, trying to smile. Yeah, just thinking. Well, stop thinking too hard, man, he said, clapping me on the back. We've got a show to kill tonight. I nodded, forcing a grin. But the weight of the question still lingered. Asterisk tonight was supposed to be the culmination of everything I'd worked for. The biggest venue yet. The lights were blinding, the crowd roaring, and the air was thick with anticipation. I could feel the energy vibrating through my body, every beat of the drum, every chord in the guitar pulling me forward. I was on top of the world, living my dream, and yet standing on that stage. I felt nothing but emptiness. I had worked for this, fought for it. I had pushed past every doubt, every fear, every person who ever told me I wasn't good enough. The crowd cheered for me, screamed my name, and yet, as I looked out at them, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was missing. I looked to the side of the stage, where my bandmates were hyped, sharing the moment, but it was there in the crowd, where I found the last piece of my broken past. Emma. I froze for a moment, my guitar still hanging loosely in my hands. She was standing near the front, her eyes locked on me like she hadn't left. It was as if the world stopped for just a second, and all I could see was her no longer my fiancée. No longer the girl who had walked away when I needed her the most, but just a shadow of the person I used to love. I couldn't take my eyes off her. She was watching me. But why? Why now? The music continued, but I felt out of sync. I tried to focus on the next verse, but I couldn't. All I could think about was the past. I could see her there, her face a little older, a little harder. The same girl who told me my dreams were childish, who laughed when I told her I'd make it. And now she was standing in the crowd, watching me live the life I had promised myself I would. For a split second, I wondered if things could have been different, if I could forgive her. Could I let it go? Was that what I was really after all, this time? Revenge? Or closure? I thought revenge would feel like victory, but here it was, and it tasted bitter as the song ended. I took a breath, the cheers still echoing in my ears, but it was as if everything was muffled. My mind raced. The past. The betrayal. The rise. The success. None of it seemed to matter when I saw her. Was this really what I wanted? I was a success. I had everything I ever dreamed of. But looking out at Emma, I realized something. This was the price I paid to get here. My success wasn't just about the shows or the applause. It was about losing myself in the process. I had become someone else. Someone who couldn't let go of the past, who couldn't move forward, even when the world was offering everything I had ever wanted. "Yo, you good?" Jason asked, glancing over at me. His voice brought me back to the present. I nodded, trying to shake it off. "Yeah, just tired, I guess." "You sure?" He pressed, but I just gave him a half-hearted smile. "Yeah, I'm good," I said, my voice distant. But the truth was, I wasn't good. I had made it. I had proved her wrong. But somehow I didn't feel better. I looked back at Emma, but she was gone now, swallowed up by the crowd. She had disappeared as quietly as she had entered my life, just like everything else I had left behind. The music picked up again. I fell back into the rhythm, but my heart wasn't in it anymore. I played through the rest of the set, the notes now feeling like something I was just going through the motions for. The crowd still cheered, still screamed, but the sound felt hollow. The show ended. The lights dimmed. The band bowed and I waved to the audience, my mind still caught in that moment with Emma. I walked off the stage, my chest tight, and leaned against the wall, trying to catch my breath. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. I didn't need to hear anything right now. I had made it. I had everything. But in the silence that followed the applause, I realized that success didn't fill the emptiness inside me. I thought it would. I thought this would be the moment where everything fell into place, where I could finally say I made it. Standing in the quiet backstage, I knew the truth. The journey had cost more than I was willing to pay. I had achieved everything I thought I wanted. But the only thing that truly mattered was what I had lost along the way. And what was left behind wasn't something I could just pick up again. I left the venue that night with my head held high. But there was no triumph in it. The success was mine, but so was the pain of getting here. And I wasn't sure how to reconcile that. Months had passed since that night at the concert. My career had exploded. I was playing bigger venues, working with bigger names, and living a life I had once only dreamed about. But despite the success, something inside me still felt distant. Distant from the people I once cared about. Distant from the people who had watched me grow, or, in Emma's case, watched me fall. I had moved on, at least I told myself that. But there were days when the past still crept in, like a shadow, pulling at my heels, reminding me of everything I'd lost to get here. It was a Thursday evening when the letter arrived. It was thin, crisp, and wrapped in a simple envelope with my name written in familiar handwriting. My stomach turned as I recognized the writing. Emma. I stared at the envelope for a while, my fingers tracing the edges. It had been so long since I'd heard from her. I had stopped thinking about her, stopped wondering what she was doing. But here she was, back, trying to reach me through paper. I opened it slowly, the words feeling heavier than they should. I don't expect forgiveness, and I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I see you now. I see who you've become, and I'm proud of you. I found my own way, and I think I've finally figured out who I am. You were a part of that, and you always will be. No matter where I go, you'll be in my heart. The person I knew before the world knew your name. I let the words sink in, but they didn't hit me like I thought they would. There was no sense of longing, no rush of old emotions. Just emptiness. I felt nothing. No anger. No regret, nothing. I read the letter once more. It was short, apologetic, and regretful. She had found her own path. Good for her. I didn't need to be a part of it anymore. I wasn't even the person she remembered, the man she thought she knew. I had changed. I balled the letter up and threw it across the room. There was a brief moment of silence, and then I stood up, walking over to the crumpled paper. I could have kept it, reread it 100 times, but that wasn't who I was anymore. The man who would cling to the past, who would wonder if things could have been different. He was gone. I took the letter, ripped it into pieces, and watched the scraps scatter across the floor. It felt like the right thing to do. I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't someone who needed validation from the past. I had carved my own path, built a life without Emma, without anyone who doubted me. I could feel the weight lifting from my shoulders. The years of uncertainty falling away as I walked out of the room. I didn't need her or anyone to define my worth. I had done that for myself. Everything okay? Jason asked when I walked into the studio, his voice a little too loud for my mood. Yeah, just some old stuff I needed to take care of, I said, forcing a smile. I wasn't lying. I had taken care of it. I had taken care of her and everything she represented. Jason raised an eyebrow but didn't push it. Good to hear, man. You seem different lately, I shrugged. Not sure if I was ready to tell him the truth. I'm just focused on the future now. He nodded, satisfied with my answer, and went back to adjusting his guitar. I walked over to my mic stand, my thoughts lingering on that crumpled letter. Emma's words didn't matter anymore. I had gotten everything I wanted. I had built something solid, something real, and it was mine. I didn't need anyone's approval to feel worthy. I had finally learned that. I took a deep breath, picked up my guitar, and plugged it in. The music hummed beneath my fingertips, steady and strong. I was no longer the dreamer who had lived in the shadows of his past. I was the man I had always wanted to be. And when the music filled the room, I felt whole. I didn't need anything more. Not from Emma, not from anyone. I had made it on my own. Asterisk, I stood backstage, watching the crew set up for the final performance of the tour. The energy in the room was electric, but it wasn't the same feeling I used to get. This time I wasn't nervous. I wasn't hungry for validation or success. I had already gotten all of that. This show tonight wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It was just about doing what I loved. I looked out at the crowd, thousands of people who had paid to see me perform. It was surreal. For years I had dreamed of this moment, but now that I was here, I realized something. The applause, the success. It didn't matter in the way I thought it would. Ready, man? Jason's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. Yeah, I said, smiling at him. Let's do this. We walked out onto the stage, the lights blinding, the crowd roaring. I took my place at the mic, the guitar resting comfortably in my hands. I looked out at the sea of faces, and for the first time I didn't feel the pressure. I wasn't doing this for anyone but me. I wasn't doing it for Emma or the people who doubted me. I wasn't even doing it to prove I was worthy. I was doing it because this was my dream. The first note rang out, sharp and clear, and the crowd went wild. But it didn't feel like it used to. There was no sense of desperation in my chest. No hunger for something I thought I was missing. I didn't need the approval anymore. I didn't need to hear them scream my name. I was enough on my own. The music flowed through me as I played. But my mind wasn't consumed with thoughts of revenge or regret anymore. I wasn't the person I used to be, the one obsessed with showing everyone I was worth something. I had realized over time that true success wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving to yourself that you can survive, grow, be at peace with who you are. By the time we hit the final song, I was calm. There was no tension in my body, no nervousness. Just a quiet understanding that I had already accomplished everything I needed to. The music was just a part of the journey now. The crowd cheered, but it felt different. It felt like a celebration of who I was now, not who I had been. I had let go of the past, of Emma, of every person who had told me I wasn't good enough. I had proven all the wrongs in my life didn't define me. The true victory was in the peace I had found, in the freedom of not needing anyone to give me their approval anymore. I stepped back from the mic as the final note echoed through the arena. For a moment, everything was silent. The noise of the crowd faded away. All I could hear was the steady thrum of my heartbeat. "Thank you," I said into the mic, my voice steady and calm. "This is for me." I walked off stage, my chest full but light, the weight of the past completely gone. I had made it. But more than that, I had made peace with it. There was no unfinished business anymore, no lingering resentment. There was just me doing what I loved, living the life I had created. Jason met me backstage, his grin wide as he clapped me on the back. "You did it, man. That was incredible." I smiled, but it wasn't a smile of triumph. It was the smile of someone who knew that the journey wasn't about getting to the top. It was about finding peace along the way. "I did," I said, the weight of the years behind me finally lifting. I really did. As I stepped into the dressing room, I looked at myself in the mirror. The reflection staring back at me was different. I wasn't the same man who had left home full of doubts, hungry for approval. I was someone new, someone who had found his worth, not in the eyes of others, but in his own heart. I didn't need anyone to tell me I had made it. I already knew. I took one last look in the mirror and whispered to myself, "This is just the beginning." And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to face whatever came next.